Hello and welcome back to Creative Pet Keeping. Today I'm going to show you the little tiny betta babies as we continue the betta breeding series. And when I mean tiny, I really mean they're super tiny. The first spawn that we're going to talk about is the Tancho Koi Marble pair spawn. Since that pair was the first to breed, that was the first spawn we had. And on July 12th, the babies were free swimming, which meant that I could remove the male as he was no longer needed to protect the nest. At that stage, baby bettas are so tiny that they are too small to eat a lot of the common foods that fish keepers will grow out to feed babies, such as baby brine shrimp or BBS. Usually people will feed them vinegar eels at this stage, but I figured out if I have a lot of Indian almond leaves in the spawning tank ahead of time, as far as at least a week or 2 weeks before the spawning even begins, and then after the fry are free swimming, I add more of the Indian almond leaves. They are such a great surface to grow and feed tiny microorganisms that are just small enough for the little baby bettas to see and eat, that this will sustain the entire spawn, and therefore I don't need to add any additional food for the first 3 days. Once they are a little bigger, it is time for me to step in and start feeding them myself. I am hatching these baby brine shrimp, which are aquatic crustaceans or Artemia. They are an amazing source of nutrients and are great food that a lot of breeders not only use to feed baby bettas, but will also use to feed a lot of different types of baby fish in general. This is because movement triggers feeding responses and hunting responses in these little bettas. So they see something moving, they become curious, they follow it, and they try to eat it. Now in this particular clip, you don't really see a lot of babies, but later on you will see that this spawn is quite a decent size, but it was a little hard for me to film them. At this stage, be careful not to overfeed your spawn. It is best to feed less and more frequently. The next thing I start doing is raising the water level on the tank. I will do so at about 1 inch per day. I have water that is heated, so it's the exact temperature of the aquarium. I also make sure that it's aged and it's dechlorinated, so that way the little baby bettas can start to adjust to new water being added to the tank. But I also do this very slowly so it doesn't shock them. Little baby bettas are delicate, so you always want to take things slow. But let's turn our attention to the tank on the right. Here we have the star-tailed male, and he spawned on the 17th. So this is going to be a much younger spawn, and this is still in the bouncing baby stage. So after the babies hatch, they will kind of hang out in their nest for 2 to 3 days, depending on temperature. Could even be 4 days sometimes. And during this stage, the male will take care of them. As you can see, they fall out of their nest, and he diligently will pick them back up and then place them into the nest. During this stage, they also don't need any food because they are going to be feeding off of the egg yolk sacs that are still attached to their bodies. One thing to keep in mind is that the males will be very territorial and protective of the nest, so they don't really like to be bothered too much, and that is why in the beginning of the clip you saw me actually cover up the tank and card it. I try not to disturb the males as much as possible because I really don't want to stress them out, but at the same time it is really interesting to observe this parental behavior of these fish, because oftentimes we get to see how bettas are hunters or they're fierce warriors, but they're also great parents. I hope that you enjoyed this update on the little tiny baby bettas. Be sure to tune in next week where we will do a super awesome time jump, and we're going to leap forward into the future, which is now, and you will get to see how much bigger these little babies have grown. This time I'm not focusing too much on the stage when they are super tiny, but starting next week we will be following them more closely as they grow up. If you would like to see clips of little tiny baby bettas in more detail, I do have some of my older series that really go in depth at documenting the babies at such a young age. Thanks for taking the time to watch my video. I hope you have a wonderful day.